я думаю, можно начинать.
I think we can get started. Our next speaker is from BYTEX from 2004 to 2011. She was in charge of client project management in BYTEX. For some time, she was in charge of the development department, and right now she is the head of the test lab at BYTEX. So let's give a warm welcome to Alena Karaseva. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad that you're having a good morning, that your applaud was so lively. I hope my presentation will be just as exciting. So, I'm Alena Karaseva. I'm the head of the test lab in BYTEX. In my presentation, I would like to share with you, I would like to share our experience in creating a configuration lab for over 1,000 configurations. I would like to say a few words about our solutions, about our problems, how we solved them, and how the configuration lab was launched, and how we started working there. So just a few words about our company. BYTEX, you see a lot of numbers, actually lots of magic here. We see 13 all over the place. BYTEX is located in Mordovia. It is the 13th region in the Russian Federation. And we have been on the IT market for over 13 years. We started out as a development department, and now we have a testing department. And now we have a new department, an education department, because we do see a need to grow. We have more and more employees. This slide is a bit outdated. There are now more than 150 testers alone, and the other departments are growing too. And of course, I would be amiss to not mention how many configurations we have. We have a lot. Different platforms, PC, mobile, VR. We can do anything. We're interested in everything. Before I get to the main part of my presentation, let's take a step back. Imagine December 2nd, 2016. What do you think? Christmas? New Year's? Maybe? So you have to buy presents, office parties are coming up. No, that's wrong because our company was in the middle of a strategic discussion. We had to decide the fate of our lab for a lot of configurations. We had goals, deadlines. The configuration lab was to be launched in 40 days. And we all remember how long the holidays are in Russia. But that had nothing to do with our deadlines. We had to launch it in January. As for the configuration coverage, we had to have over 100 configurations. That was one of the requirements at the time of creation of the lab. So what did we have to solve by creating the lab? Obviously, we have to set the goals when we create something. The four key things are in the slides. So the first thing important for any developer, any player, are the system requirements to the product. The player looks at it when he has to pay his own money for buying a product, because if the system requirements don't really fit, he will maybe look to buying a new equipment to play the game that he wants. And the same goes for the developer. Any developer wants to cover the most configurations possible so that the project can expand to as many people as possible. So, for example, we tried to find the minimal configuration for one of our clients. And he said that my application will be used by Pentium MMX. So that's 1998. Maybe that was just bragging because he thought we couldn't find the configuration for that, but we managed to do that. Unfortunately, the application wasn't launched, but our goals were reached. The next thing we find important is performance and stability of the application. Performance is FPS, regardless of the stage, of the location, of what you actually do. It's important that it's very important that FPS remains stable and that you don't have the screen freezing, that you are comfortable playing the game. Same goes for stability. No matter how many times people play a product, it crashes. Why? Is it because the code is not optimized? Is it because of program errors that have to do with the user's equipment? But this all results in players' reviews on forums, and all developers try to avoid having unoptimized codes so that the games don't crash. And compatibility. So when we select the system requirements, we try to test them on different equipment to set the benchmark for compatibility. And if we see that the product is incompatible with some type of equipment, we tell the developers and they try to optimize his code, or in the ideal world, make that a requirement. So these are the four aspects that our configuration lab is based on. The next thing we had to think about was what would be a test stand. So we had over 1,000 configurations. Just imagine 1,000 computers standing there. The first thing we thought about was where would we put all this? We needed office premises, so it's an entire football field where we would put all of this. But that just didn't work for us. We had to find a better option. And we decided to take a part of the stands, and they would be constant. We chose operation systems and processors that would be held constant, but every stand would have things that would change. We would change the video cards and the memory. And this meant that we still can have over 1,000 configurations, and we can optimize the number of equipment that we need in our offices. So obviously, we already said that some things do have to change. And for one iteration, we need an hour, sometimes 2 hours. So throughout the workday, a tester needs to change the video card 4 to 8 times. So what kind of equipment do we need? How can we do this easier? So our ideal solution was to buy a thermal tech body frame. They're open, they're very easy to use, and easy to maintain. So I'll show you a small video about how the test stand works, how it's assembled. You see that all of the elements are open. You can see how easy it is to change the video card. If something is broken, we can change it. So for example, last year our processor broke, and just in 30 minutes we managed to fix anything. But we did have a set which allowed us to install the equipment immediately. We had another problem, so we have an open body frame, and the video card needs to be installed on the mother plate. Obviously, we're all people, and not everybody has the gentle hands to do this. And this means that the equipment may see some faults, it may break down. And our solution was to buy Razer cards. They're flexible. They allow to assemble the equipment in a more flexible way. It's more convenient. But this solution wasn't ideal because when we started testing, we realized that our drivers crashed. So we didn't know if it was a if it was a problem that had to do with the equipment or the application. So we had to go back to installing the video card directly on the motherboard. And we realized that that was the problem that had to do with our intermediate solution. And in the end, we decided that we would install the video cards directly on the mother plate. So our test team now also includes has a system administrator who maintains the equipment. And you see that test stand has an open body frame. And now we have a set of regulations in our test lab. Why did we do that? The body frame is vulnerable to coffee, tea, anything. And so it is absolutely forbidden to take any beverages, any food to the test lab. So we try to keep our system administrators happy because they have to maintain all of this equipment. So let me remind you that we keep the processor in the test stand, and the operation system are also constant to the test stand. What we change is the video card. So then we had to figure out how many test stands did we actually need. So from the start, I'll say that we didn't buy the 30 stands right away. We bought them gradually. First we bought 12, then we had 28, and now we have 30. So then we had to decide how many video cards we needed. Okay, 30 stands, then we need 30 video cards, right? Then we get 900 configurations. That's not exactly true. We saw the following challenge. Most of the products we get are developed for Windows. And this means that our test stands had the entire lineup of Windows from XP to Windows 10. But not all video cards work with the 32-bit Windows. So part of the video cards have to just lay there while we work. And so that meant that we couldn't use all of the video cards and we couldn't have all the configurations we needed. And the solution is obvious. We had to purchase more video cards. Now we have 60 of them and 30 test stands. But let's not forget that not everything goes according to plan. Systems crash, and we have to take that into account when planning for the cycle. If we can't resolve any problems with this particular stand, with this configuration, then we put it off till the end of the cycle. So, XP, probably you're wondering why we need XP in our test stands. Who cares? But statistics shows that 5% of users still like XP, they use it, and they want to continue using it on our personal computers. And that is why the lineup of operation system includes XP. What next? I would like to give you a short list of what we have. Our video cards, our processors, that's the entire list of what we have. How did we select them? What were these decisions based on? So we were focused on keeping an equal balance. We had ND and Intel cores. The same goes for video cards, 50% NVIDIA, 50 ND. So I'll just give you a disclaimer. It seems like it's pretty easy to organize all of this, but that's not true. So this was a problem of time as well, of the products that were released not only recently, but over the last 10 years. Some video cards that we use were released in 2005. But there are new requests to grow, and we have requests to purchase Vega. Our studio is waiting till it's delivered. Testers really are excited to test configurations on the newest solutions. So how do we purchase these cards? They're easy to buy on any online store. They are manufactured. They are in the warehouse. But how do we buy the equipment that is no longer popular, that has not been manufactured since 2012, but we need it? What do we do? Well, we use Avito, we use other resources, so we just contact people. This is what our supplier map looks like. We have suppliers in the Far East, in Central Russia. We even went to meet our suppliers to another city, and when we got there, we saw that the video card is not functional. So we had to check how it would work. When we got there, we saw that the card was not functional, and we decided that every time we get new equipment, we test it. And only after that, we install it in our test stands. So now we know what our test stand has, how many test stands we have. Now let's talk about the production process. Obviously, we have many partners, and we test a lot of projects on the test stands. Obviously, we need to get the build on the FTP, and then it is distributed on the local network to the test stands. So we do the iteration, and then we do the report, hand it in to the customer. But not everything goes smoothly. There is, people are people. So the first thing is that the customer didn't give us the build on time, and that shifts our deadlines. We try to change the schedule of our people. We call in people in the evenings on the second shift so that we can provide the build report on time. Sometimes they give us the wrong version. They don't check the build that they send us. And for some reason only we discover that it's non-functional. And we have to foresee all of the different circumstances. So we check the build. If it crashes, and only that, we launch the cycle. Okay, so delivery. What could go wrong here? Delivery of the build, I mean. Actually, we had to make a lot of decisions when we figured out the delivery of the build. So we had to have broadband, not only for us, but for the customer. We had 100 megabit at first, but that was not enough. Then we had 200, not enough. Now it's 600, and we continue to grow. Our appetite is growing, but not always is the bandwidth the main thing. The thing is that our customers send us the build in different ways, sometimes on FTP, sometimes not. And then we download the build. But what we saw in some cases was that the channel of some providers shows a lower download speed. That is why we have reserve internet channels. And in the case of delays, we switch, and the build is downloaded much faster. So we get the build in our FTP, and it is distributed using special scripts on the test stands. So how do we set up the test stands? I will speak about this in detail a bit later, about cleaning the operational system. We had a lot of problems here, and the main problem had to do with the timing. So then we have the GPU installation, and then we install the drivers.
Последней версии тут мы
In terms of what driver to choose, we follow the customer. Sometimes they select a specific driver, and it's important to really follow the customer and not install the wrong software to accompany the driver. It was also important as for the OS to reduce the service time. We decided to deinstall the drivers and to clean up the registry, but it didn't work as well as we expected because we had tails of activity of a specific driver running on the next day and so on. Then that created possible overlaps, and therefore we decided to do a clean OS. We had the target time of 25 minutes for OS installation, but we couldn't fit into that slot, and not every customer was willing to cover that financially. So that's why we were looking for a different solution, and that solution was to reinstall the OS from backup. The timing was right. We were looking for software to do that, and it turned out that Acronis was a good solution that enabled us to reinstall the OS in as little as 15 minutes. That also shows our strive for improvement. Next stage for us was to bring SSD to our test stands, which also reduced the time even further. SSD holds the OS image and the system itself. The build that we are testing is on a hard drive. That further reduced time to 8 minutes, and this is the perfect solution as of today. Now to the human side of things. We have a team which has to be not only tech savvy but also prepared for the unexpected, and the people who work at the test stand, they're just the right people to do that. Frequently, we have the situation when the customer takes too much time and the delays incur, and they come really last minute because they have been improving their functionality, and now they're ready for the perf testing and the compact testing, and we are faced with a very short time for the testing period. And when we're faced with that, we managed to restructure our operations so that we worked in 2 shifts, and instead of a week, we took just 2 days. We have an HR, a big pool of people who we can bring in if needed. So system administrators also assist us very well. They buy the equipment, they organize the environment and architecture there, they follow the market. The lead test has to handle customers when they don't really have a clear idea in mind of what and how they want to test, and sometimes it's up to the QA lead to decide that we will be using this configuration and it is better for the task. So our lead is the person to interface with the customer, and they also do the list of what is to be testing, what iterations we should be running. Sometimes we go off track, and it's very important to stick to the. It's very important that the QA lead is able to design a workable testing cycle that requires not only leading qualities, leadership qualities, but also knowledge of mass. We, of course, have a lot more available configurations that we can assemble. That's why we did a table of all the possible configurations that we can, where we have it's assorted by GPU on the left and the various video cards form the columns, and some of the intersections won't be workable, so that's a no-go. Therefore, the customer can pick all the configurations that they want to test in, and then the customer chooses the start date and picks the time that they have for the testing run. Then we, in response to that, we form the team and set a number of days, the time for that specific task. So the lead feeds the customer request to the team. Sometimes it's not just our operational capacity, but it's also sometimes they want to test how the virus scanners will work together with the OS and the software to be tested. So that adds extra difficulty to do that. We normally, once we get the build, we do a test in order to understand when we will have to have the build, because the download time can vary, and sometimes we need some spare time to get the build, to download it and make it run. And then we do the actual testing. Each time, each project is different. The difficulty varies, the configurations vary. Therefore, for every customer, for every project, we have to do the operational instruction for the guidelines for our team. The lead does that, and once we're through with that, we move on to the actual testing. Now for the financials. It's not the case that you can just purchase the equipment and that will do the thing for you. No, of course, getting all the hardware is, of course, an important cost. Team salary is another significant chunk. Those who work for us full-time and those who come for specific projects. But at the same time, we have to have office spaces, and this space needs to be scalable when we need to have more space. Sometimes we recently bought 2 more testing stands for new CPUs. because the market constantly provides new equipment, new solutions. Therefore, you need to be flexible, not only in terms of your financial aspect, but also in terms of how much space you have and how you handle it. There's always something new in the market in terms of hardware, so you need to have you need to have some spare cash. You need to plan your budget accordingly so that you can buy this sometimes costly equipment, and the hardware breaks down. So we have there are three ways in how we handle that. First of all, we have a guy in the room who can actually go and physically fix it to ensure the smooth running. Next, we have what we call a zip supply, which is frequently which will ideally be a backup copy, but it's would be very costly. Therefore, we have normally the CPUs and the video cards that fail frequently, so that we can replace them if necessary and run the new iteration of testing. And the third solution is external service provider. We have contracts with maintenance and repair service providers, thanks to which it does not take a month, but only takes 2 to 3 days for us to get someone to our office and help us repair whatever needs to be repaired. And I think it's time for summary now. So we have 30 testing stands. We launched as planned in January. We did have a rather vibrant New Year's celebration, but it didn't stop us from launching on time. We've had over 50 customers, 50 orders rather, and this amounted to 45,000 testing hours on the equipment that we have. We are open to meeting new customers. We happy to take new orders. I'm sure that you came here for a reason, so maybe you want to do a test with us, or maybe you want to do a testing lab of your own. Unfortunately, there are no guidelines of how you can do it on your own out there. So do come and talk. We can consult you on that. I'm happy to take questions, and we will also be happy to do a test run for you. Thank you so much. Questions? Hi. A short question. Can you please repeat that? Why the hard drive configuration is not as one of the parameters of your test stands? Well, normally it's about the OS, the CPU, CPU for and memory size, not even the motherboard. That's what interests the customer. But I think the hard drive is something that influences the performance directly. So okay, so what parameters do you want to evaluate? So yeah, how fast will it read the? We can look at that, but normally we try to look for what our customers want to test, and so far we haven't had any requests in terms of hard drives, but we will look into that. Thanks very much for the presentation, and apologies if you've covered the topic my question is about in the beginning of it, but the question is, how long did it take you from the decision to create a testing lab to the actual start of operations? Well, the prehistory is that BYTEX has had a test lab from 2012 as a separate department, and from that time already we had our own stock of hardware, so we were doing that from that time on, and we were doing testing already. But in December last year, we decided that we have to have a lab as a physical entity, and we started the first test run there on January 9, 2017. We're very proud of it, and we keep looking for new solutions. So we're happy to have this baby finally. As far as I understand, you reinstall the OS from the image every time. How do you update it? When we have a new Windows version, we just create a new image. So do you do it every Tuesday? I mean the patching. If it's if there is a patch when we're running a test, then we don't update it. We talk to the customer about that. We can test from the older versions of the OS. Thanks to Acronis, we can do that. So I don't think it's a problem. Hi. How do you follow the new driver versions on the market? Well, we have people who monitor the updates there, and this is how we do it. Same as with the OS. Once we have new drivers, then if the customer agrees, then we run the test with the new updated drivers. Sorry to interrupt you. We also have our pool of drivers. Sometimes the customer will tell us that some of the users are still using the drivers from 2016. Can you please do the test for them? We have them all in our storage, so to say, and then we can just pick whatever we need to do the run test. If we have, say, QA of our own, and we do the testing ourselves, but if we just need one specific configuration and have remote access to it, well, we are picky about this because sometimes we say if the customer does not get the information he was looking for, then we can allocate this specific station to remote access. And another one, will you be adding laptops and mobile devices? We're working to include laptops. This summer we bought about 15 laptops. We have about 40 overall now. I didn't add it to our presentation because I focused on the more physical side of infrastructure, this testing stand itself. We have the Macs, we have the laptops. As for the mobile devices, we have the full range of Apple devices. As for Android, we cannot afford to have everything really financially. Therefore, no, we have some. We have VR as well. We've procured that, and we're ready to start playing with it. Is it all the questions that you had? Well, thank you so much for coming, for listening, and I hope that solutions that we provide will help you.